Now, this is kind of a legal question here back to Iran specifically. The State Department has reclassified Iran's Revolutionary Guards as an international terrorist group. Could that possibly be used to put an attack against Iran under the original authorization to use force against bin Laden and the international terrorists after September 11th?
Well, I think they wouldn't hesitate to do that, and they would use it. I think it would be very, very deceptive and immoral, illegal, still unconstitutional, and every member of Congress should be outraged for that stretch to decide that would be the reason they could win and claim they have justification for it. But, there was one bill, it was a supplemental bill a few months ago that we had in there that Bush could not do anything against Iranians without explicit permission of the Congress. And yet that was removed by the Democrats in the conference report. So even the Democrats did not want to leave that in there. So that's why we haven't seen any significant change in policy even after this last election.
Yeah, it's really too bad. I think a lot of people had their hopes up.
They were voting for change, but they didn't get it.
What's your assessment of the situation in Israel and Palestine? Can there be peace there in our lifetime?
Oh, I think there could be. The Palestinians and the Jews and other Arabs have a history of living next to each other and getting along. It seems like when outsiders come in and stir things up and send in weapons and pick sides and intimidate and take over their policies, I think our taking over of the Israeli policy is detrimental to Israel and certainly to us and to the Palestinians. I think if we weren't there, Israel would have a real incentive to get along with their neighbors, and they've had overtures towards Syria. They'd like a peace treaty with Syria, and I think things would work out. But we get in the way. We say, "Oh no, you're not allowed to do that, and you're not allowed to do this with your borders," and so Israel has sold out their sovereignty to us, but they also are inhibited from doing the things in their self-interest. I think they would work with the Arab League. They talk to them even now, but I think they would have it in there, an incentive for them to deal with their Arab neighbors. I mean, there's so many more Arabs. There's an self-interest in this. But once we get over there and start passing out weapons to both sides, it just distorts everything.
So you think if America stopped intervening rather than unleashing them against the Palestinians, making it okay, or basically giving them a blind eye permission to expel the Palestinians from the West Bank or what have you think it would go completely the other way, that they would realize that, well, now that America is not there to protect them, now they have all the incentive to really try to make peace?
Yes, and there's a lot of Israelis that would talk like we do about foreign policy, and that's the liberal party. I mean, if you say that here, or if a Jewish community here talk like that, they're called un-American and anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. Yet there's a large number of Israelis who would like to have peace. Matter of fact, some of their soldiers are refusing to fight. I mean, they're tired of it all, and they're being drafted, and they're sent down there to try to settle these disputes between the settlements and the Palestinians, and they just know it's a real mess. So I think there'd be a great incentive, and we would probably hear more from those who do not support the militant approach, and we'd hear more from the liberal party in Israel on what they would like to have done.
This is Antiwar Radio. I'm Scott Horton, and I'm talking with Dr. Ron Paul. He's a Republican candidate for President of the United States. Dr. Paul, it seems like the promise of a new friendship with Russia at the end of the Cold War is fading away. What's happening?
Well, it seems like some people didn't want to really have peace and friendship with Russia. I mean, our whole policy, once again, of going right up to their borders and putting anti-ballistic missiles up there and claiming that we're protecting Europe and the United States from Iran. I mean, nobody believes that. I mean, we're provoking problems with Russia. I mean, they're no angels, but we aren't especially angelic either. So, but I think this whole principle of non-intervention means that we shouldn't provoke people. We don't need anti-ballistic missiles on the borders of Russia. If the Europeans think it's worthwhile, let them do it. But they're a lot less worried about it than we are. And I would think that they would not want us there because if we provoke the Russians, they're in between us. So I have no idea what they think is a good reason to be antagonistic to the Russians, other than if you're totally cynical. Some people like cold wars and sometimes hot wars because they keep the weapons industries, flowing.
Yeah, well, let's hope they don't make a war with Russia a hot one. They still have tens of thousands of nuclear weapons, right?
Right, and they do. And we essentially won the Cold War without, a military confrontation. That's why I think it's so silly that some people think that we have to militarily confront people because they're a danger to us and they don't even have a weapon. They use this as a reason to go into Iraq. It was just obscene what they were trying to make us believe, and they're doing the same thing with the Iranians.
Well, in the news this week, Russia and China are doing joint war games. You feel like American foreign policy is pushing them together, healing that old Sino-Soviet split?
I think so, and I wouldn't be surprised if India and some other countries, and of course Southeast Asia too, the Kazakhstan, the other stands in that region won't be joining there as well. So once a giant gets on the ropes, our influence can dwindle quickly, and then that will affect the value of the dollar. The dollar is artificially held up because we're the economic and military power. But as we weaken, as our economy weakens, and as our military weakens because of these protracted wars, I think you'll see more of the alignment with Russia and China and other countries getting together and say, we're sick and tired of America telling everybody what to do. And I think the whole process will be reversed, because I think we get some free benefits because we have that position that we are the only superpower. But after a while, people sort of get tired of that, and that would be very detrimental to us and even more injurious to our freedoms here at home. Well,
we already have a proxy war in Somalia, and there's some who want to intervene in Sudan, and I've seen in interviews where you've pointed out before, it's funny how those are two African countries that have oil resources there. Of course, some have written that that's the real goal there, is to try to keep those resources out of the hands of the Chinese. But I guess what you're saying is it's much more expensive to do all this intervention than to just let the Chinese produce it and sell it to us.
Yeah, that would be it. You can sit back. They would have a tremendous incentive to do so. But people have no understanding or confidence that markets work, and that you don't have to resort to this idea that you have to militarily control natural resources. It doesn't mean everything will be perfect, and others will try to intrude and take over. But eventually, people have to sell products. I mean, Switzerland, I don't think sits around and worries about where they're going to get their stuff to live.
Right.
And yet, although they're mountainous, they're really in the heart of Europe, but have been able to avoid all these wars going on. I think it's fantastic, and it's a great example of what another country could do. So it's sort of sad that we embark on these programs of sanctions and embargoes and wars and bombing and threats. It's just so needless.
Well, what about humanitarian crises like what's happening in Darfur with the nomads versus the farmers, and hundreds of thousands of people apparently have died so far? Is there any room for American intervention to stop a genocide or a mass-scale slaughter like that? A lot of liberals and Democrats are very sympathetic to what I'm saying on foreign policy, but then they always assume, well, you will go into Darfur. And my answer is no, I wouldn't do that either. I don't have the authority. I don't have moral authority. I don't have legal authority. I don't have authority under the Constitution. And in a practical way, it doesn't really work. You send food and aid over there. The military takes it over. They're in the middle of a civil war, so it sometimes does exactly the opposite. Instead of ever getting to the people who are starving, it gets in the hands of one faction over another. So I just say that it's not in our best interest. It shouldn't be that we don't care. I think ultimately what they need is an understanding of how freedom works and how the marketplace works. And we certainly should never inhibit people who want to go and help and send goods and products. If it's truly aid in food, I mean, we have a willing country here, and if we were a lot wealthier than we are today, literally billions of dollars would be used
to help people like that. So I do not advocate taxing people or using the military force to even do these humanitarian adventures, because sometimes what they do in the name of humanitarianism doesn't end up helping people very much.
Well, I sure appreciate your time today. Everybody, Dr. Ron Paul. He is a congressman representing District 14 on the Texas Gulf Coast, and he's a Republican candidate for President of the United States. His website is ronpaul2008.com. Thank you again very much for your time today, sir.
Thanks, Scott.